Although it may be argued that San Diego is America's finest city, there is little doubt that it is our country's most diverse. From the wilds of the zoo to the sidewalks of B Street and Broadway, San Diego is a potpourri of entertainment for every taste and whim. One may tangle with the rough at Torrey Pines, catch the waves at Black's Beach, go for a sail, and yet be home in time for the legendary green flash of a San Diego sunset. Alive by night as well, our city caters to jazz as easily as to ballet, presents gourmet dining with the same informality as a barbecue at the bay, and offers the chance to dance the night away or walk alone to the sounds of the sea. To live happily in San Diego, it is not as important to be young as it is to think young. Almost 18% of San Diego's population is over the age of 65, more than 220,000 people. For senior citizens who enjoy our city, happiness is based on participation, on enjoyment of the outdoors and the insides of a city which is made for the young of all ages. Two such gentlemen, who call themselves young old men, are Ash Bown and Kearney Johnston. Both are men of the sea, men driven by the urge to compete, men who love to beat the young guys, then turn around and teach them their secrets. We hope to capture the flavor and philosophy of both men, of Kearney as he rows and Ash as he sails, for they are proof that old age at 65 is someone else's number. Kearney Johnston was born in San Diego 68 years ago. One of 6 children, he remembers that his family was poor and, as he says, you walked where the bus couldn't take you. Kearney's father owned 2 restaurants in those days, the Silver Dollar Cafe and the OK Waffle House. And Kearney got to meet many of the performers who played at the old Strand Theater, among them Charlie Chaplin. After graduating from high school, Kearney went to work as a printer with the San Diego Union and remained for more than 43 years. In 1930, he became a member of the San Diego Rowing Club as a swimmer and was awarded a year's membership through the kindness of a fellow member. Since that time, Kearney has become one of the world's greatest rowers. He has won 35 club double sculling championships using a different partner each time. In 1951, he won the California State Lightweight Single Sculling Championship and has won the San Diego Invitational Sculling Championship 6 times. Internationally, Johnson has received medals from many countries, and this for taking part in a sport dominated by those many years his junior. In 1974, at the age of 63, he won the Senior Rowers Championship at Bern, Switzerland. A friendly man who, as he says, loves people, Kearney has kept up correspondence from England to Egypt with friends he met through rowing. He says his wife feels that rowing is a part of him. Certainly he is a major part of rowing.
I've been a member of the club 49 years now, which is nearly a double life membership. When I come in the club, I was a Sea Scout. They used to meet at the rowing club, and I looked at that water, and I always liked the water. So I asked him one day, I says, how do you become a member? And he says, well, it costs you your dollar dues a month and a $25 initiation fee. I said, well, I'm ready to start in, pay, and so I can join up. I'd like to be a member, and I'd like to go out there and learn to row. I watched those people out there rowing those boats. So he says, well, you wait just a bit here, wait a couple of weeks, and I'll see what I can do for you. So I did, and then he called me in the office and told me that there was a club member here that would give 10 memberships to youngsters, high school boys and early college, and I was one of those selected. So I started right in there. I was down here, started rowing, and And that's how I got my rowing started. And the first thing they did, they put me in a boat. They don't do like now. I put you in a doubles and I row with you in the doubles and balance the boat, so it's easier for you to learn to row that way. But they put me in a boat by myself and say, start rowing, and I rowed clear over to Coronado, which was 3 miles from the club. And then on my way back, I got about a quarter mile from the club and I broke an oar. And there I sat, but I had good balance. So I waited about 10 minutes, and here comes somebody out of the club skeeter boat. And I said, will you go back and get me another oar? I says, this one broke off. So he says, sure. So he got me another oar, and then I put it in the oar lock and rowed on in. In my younger days, I went to church because the minister lived right across the street from us. And the pastor says, to my mother, he says, if you want to get rid of those kids, there was 6 of us in our family, why, I'll take them up to church, and that's what we did. But nowadays, I go out on Sunday mornings and I get everybody lined up and we head across to the bay and we get about in the middle and I says, wait a minute, we got to have church. So I say, God save the King, God save us, start rowing. And then we just row on across the bay. In the late 40s, we went up to Newport and I rowed in a race there against young Jack Kelly, and I think I come in 4th in the race. But after the race, I was on my way back to get the float, and a fellow in a big cabin cruiser yells out, what are you doing out there, you old man? And I looked at him and I says, mister, I'm a young old man. I can still row a boat. And he really felt bad about that, so he invited me up to his boat, but I told him I didn't have time. He wanted me to come in and have lunch or something like that, but I said, no, I've got to get on back to the float because we have to get on home. I don't have much trouble with doctors because I keep rowing, and it keeps me in shape, and the doctors are so busy now that I don't like to bother them that way. But when I went over to Switzerland in 1974, I had to take a physical because they had to be sure you had a good heart to come over there. And a friend of mine, Dr. Friend, recommended this heart specialist. So I went up to him, but before I got there, my doctor friend told him that watch out for this guy because he's going to fool you. So I went up, took the test, and then the last part of it was the treadmill. And I got on the treadmill, and he put me on there for about 4 minutes, and then he says, I'm going to rev it up and then give it a little more angle, so you work a little harder. So he did, and he ran it for 9.5 minutes, and all of a sudden it started squeaking and smoking, and he says, wait a minute, stop that thing, you're breaking my treadmill. The San Diego Rowing Club is going to have to move to Mission Bay in the real near future. And I hate to see us move from this bay because, you know, on San Diego Bay you're supposed to have recreation, and rowing is recreation. And myself, I've rowed in every nick and corner of this bay. I don't think I missed a spot on here. And I really hate to see us leave here. In fact, I'm really going to miss it. Because this is home to me, my second home. My wife calls it my first home. When I open up the place in the morning, it's kind of spooky in here. You hear all these different little sounds. You hear the rope beating up there on the flagpole, and then underneath the club you hear the pigeons around there cooing and making a lot of noise down underneath there. Then when you open the doors up the club, why, here goes a heron flying out and squawking at you because you disturbed him. And the seagulls are sitting on my float down there, and I go down there and rush them off and clap my hands, and they take away. They look at me and says, you can't say you own this float. And I tell them, go over to your own float. I think that rowing is one of the greatest sports for a person because it keeps you active. When you get up in your years, you have to keep that body moving, because otherwise it's just going to catch up with you and it don't do you any good. You'll be sick and this and that, floating away. You've got to keep rowing or doing something active. That's why I keep rowing every day. I enjoy it. It keeps my body alive, and it makes you feel younger.
Join him now as Kearney takes you on a row through the cool morning waters of San Diego Bay. Ash Bown was born April 30th, 1912 in Kyla, Saskatchewan, a town of about 100 people. The second son of Beatrice and George Bown, Ash moved with his family to San Diego on his 8th birthday. The devastation of the Depression caused the family to put up their home for auction in 1931. And Ash remembers having to sell his football as well. Ash, during this time, had gone to Grant School in San Diego, where his grandson goes today, to Roosevelt Junior High School, where he was a student body president, and to San Diego High School, where he was the quarterback of the varsity football team and a star half-miler. After graduation, Ash worked as a paid hand on the yacht Felihe. He saved $800 and went to the University of Cincinnati, where he earned 2 years of college credit in a single year. His $800 gone, he returned to San Diego and went to work for General Petroleum as a service station attendant. The following year, he met his future wife, Ruth, and in 1935 they married with assets of $200. In 1939, Ruth and he had a daughter, Judith Ann Bown. After the death of his wife in 1975, 2 weeks before their 40th anniversary, Ash began to rejuvenate his boat Carousel, thought to be one of the finest racing yachts on the coast. Today he is still an active yachtsman and is busily getting ready for the famed Lipton Cup races in Mexico.
Why I actually got started in sailing, I don't know. I did it at a very young age. My parents moved here when I was 8 years old from the middle part of Canada in Saskatchewan, where there was no such a thing as a boat. All we had is a few sloughs. We moved down to San Diego, the big population of 70,000 people. And at the age of around 12, I got very interested in boating. Some of the fellows in the neighborhood were building their own little boats, so we borrowed some barrel stays and also got a hold of some canvas at a new house they were building, and I built my first boat, which is around 8 feet long. It leaked very badly, but I finally paddled it over to Coronado, where the San Diego Yacht Club was at that time. After about 2 years of that, I think my father felt a little sorry for me and bought me what was called a Seamew. It was a 14-foot catboat. And from about that time on, my interest grew and grew. But the little small boat that I built, tried to put a sail on that, but all it'd do would tip over. So it did more to develop my swimming technique than it did sailing. A lot of people buy boats with no intention of racing. Their idea of buying a boat is to sail, have fun, take their family out in it, and enjoy the water on the weekends. And that is wonderful, and I'm glad a lot of people do. However, the minute that you have a boat and you're sailing along close to another boat, which there's millions, hundreds of today, you find one about the same size and you all of a sudden start trimming your sails, wanting to go a little faster, and you can't understand why that fellow passes you. And there's no reason that you can't beat him. So consequently, you're already starting to get the bug. You start getting new sails, learning how to trim your sails, and in boat racing, there's only one place, and that's first. I'm real happy about so many boats today, and thanks to fiberglass and the new modern technique of making boats, because it is much more, it's very inexpensive the way they build them today versus of wood with all of the steamed ribs, etc. in the olden days. And it lets more people enjoy the sport and get away from all of the hubdub of around the city. For some reason or other, when you're out in the ocean and racing or the bay, you completely forget all about your troubles at home and work. There is enough to do on a sailboat that always keeps you busy. You're either pulling a line, a sheet, taking down a jib, putting up a spinnaker, the wind changes, you have to shift direction, and it's not a real hard physical sport in most cases, but it gives you enough to do that it makes you forget about everything except what you're doing and just enjoy the water. Today, it's wonderful that there's so many that are enjoying it and not limited to just a few. My little grandson is 9 years old now, and he's been sailing for 2 years. Last year he won a number of races, and I'm sure that he will follow sailing the rest of his life because he has the bug very badly and can't wait to be out sailing. He's sailing what's known as Little Sabbath, which is 8 feet long, a one-sail catboat, and there's about 150 around the bay at San Diego Yacht Club, etc., and Coronado Yacht Club Southwestern. It was a little amusing to me. Last year we have what's called a family night on Tuesday evening. The mothers, which are a group of girls all race in the afternoon, leave their boats in the water, and then the family come down around 5 o'clock and we all switch off racing the boats. Well, my little grandson was out racing and I was racing, and the little guy beat me by 2 minutes in this race, and naturally very happy that it beat his grandfather in the boat, and I wasn't so happy. He suggested that he would like what's known as a hiking strap so that he can lean out farther in the boat, and wanted to know if I'd buy it for him. And I said, heck no, use your own money. That's what it's for, Danny. If you want a hiking strap, go buy it yourself. And he learns rather fast. He retorted with, well, if you'll buy me a hiking strap, I'll promise not to tell anybody that I beat you. So needless to say, the little guy got a hiking strap for his boat. One thing I think that helps keep you young is the people you associate with. And in sailing, you have fellows from the age of my grandson, who is 10, up to 80 and 85 years old, is the oldest fellow that I know of that is still actively sailing. You have the younger fellows' ideas. You're helping them to develop their boats. It's making you think of new ideas for your own and how to improve your sailing and also improve your boat, which you don't get in a lot of other sports. It's limited to a group just of your own age, and we have a great variety of age.
Now share Ash's love of sailing as his carousel responds to the wind on the broad expanse of San Diego Bay.
There's only one thing, after being in so many different places that I have through my sailing, you're always glad to get back to dear San Diego. And those fellas, every place, everybody that's ever sailed in San Diego says that we have the ideal sailing conditions of any place in the world. I haven't been around the world, but I believe them. Our ocean out here, we're only a few minutes from being out in the ocean. 99% of the time, it is nothing but beautiful swell with a 4 to 5 foot swell, a nice gentle breeze. It's not like San Francisco, where in the afternoon 20 to 25 miles an hour is an average wind. And sailing around San Diego on a moonlight night is something you'll never forget, is sailing down the path of the moon. One night we sailed our starboat, we left Newport Harbor and sailed to San Diego down the path of the moon. And if there's any romance in anybody, that would make you all want to own a sailboat. No motor, no noise, just gliding through the water and following the path of the moon. I'm not trying to sell sailboats, but it's something that you can't compare with a powerboat or anything else, of being absolutely quiet and gliding through the water. I would think possibly sailplanes might have a close similarity to it.
Although it would not be fair to say that years ago Kearney Johnston and Ashby never talked together of growing older, it is remarkable how well and how purposefully they have done so. As a senior citizen, one cannot expect to be as active as a teenager, but there's absolutely no reason to feel that any activities are out of reach. Through the vitality of Ash and Kearney, we have seen that to be happy past the age of 65, it is not as important to be young as it is to think young.